Hi everyone. I'm Snehal, co-founder and CEO of Outdo. Thanks everyone for joining in. This is our third webinar, and Happy New Year to each one of you. Great to have you. As I said, this is our third webinar. Our first two webinars were on the basics of role play, and then we talked about how you should plan for your sales enablement cycle for this quarter and the coming year, right? In this role play, we'll be talking about some intermediate use cases as we described. So we'll just wait for a few seconds for everyone to join in. Great. So I see a few of the folks have joined in. So let's get started, right? So over the next 20 to 30 minutes, we'll be discussing how you can take the role play game to the next level, how you can make more and more realistic role plays, right? Um, Basically, we have seen over the last few quarters, right? Companies have started adopting role plays like anything, right? So whether it is role plays in person, but now we see that at a tremendous sort of a growth rate, close to 10-20% month on month that we come across, right? Companies are now adopting AI role plays. They have become part of the sales training programs, the usual sales coaching programs, and continuous sales enablement curriculum that the companies have, right? So having role plays or not is not the question right now, right? We are way beyond that. Their managers are creating role plays, they're creating courses, they're creating call blitzes. Many of them are using Outdo to do that, and other tools, of course. But what they are also seeing is that, I mean, even though there's a consistency in actually folks attempting the role plays, performing really well in the role plays, the outcomes are still inconsistent, right? So in this particular webinar, we'll go deep into why the outcomes are inconsistent. They might be inconsistent for a single individual. They might be inconsistent across teams, right? So we will try to figure out how we can create more and more sort of consistent results, right, that drive revenue with role plays. The fundamental reason why the outcomes are inconsistent mainly is there's a gap between the practice and execution, right? So in the usual role plays, the sales team members, the GTM team members, the customer facing team members, they come, they perform well, they are not tense, they are pretty relaxed, they get good scores as well. But in the real situation, when they are actually talking to a customer, or they are talking in a particular deal context, right? They are not able to perform to that extent, right? So there is this mismatch between what is how they perform in the practice and what is actually delivered, right, in the actual deals, right? And this sort of deviation from what we call the happy path actually breaks the momentum, right? The managers complain about the cycles getting longer, the targets getting missed. The leaders and VPs complain about how the forecasting has gone wrong for the quarter, right? So it trickles down, right, to a much larger problem. And that's why, if the right action is taken at the right moment, it will help you to drive results faster, right? So that's what we are going to talk about. We would essentially talk about how you can create very realistic sort of role plays, how you can carry over from role play to a real conversation, how do you reframe readiness, right, from what it is right now. And we can maybe discuss some practical use cases as well, or basically showcase how you can implement in the real world. Correct. Now going deeper into the prevailing situation, right? So mostly when we design role plays right now, in the early days, right, They are very basic in nature. In a way, we design them like how a deal or a call should be, right? How we expect it to be, right? So, we might expect the call to start with a simple sort of opener, and then you have a overview, then you have a bit of demo, and maybe pricing or a next step at the last, um, at the end of the call, right? But it turns out that the buyers have become advanced, right? And the real situation, especially in the enterprise sales cycle, is not exactly how we expect it to be, right? There are situations where there are the budget cycle might just come up early in the conversation. The procurement, the legal issues might come up very early on, right? In fact, in one of the deals, what we realized was what happened, and it was a very peculiar situation, but we realized that this would happen in many enterprise deals as well. Like, the legal person got changed or got replaced 3 times during the entire time. The deal got delayed by because of that, by a few months, right, a quarter. So things like these come up. These are, of course, this is an extreme use case, but the ability to actually navigate uncertainty is very critical, right? And the role plays with the AI agents that we have are now pretty powerful, right? That you can deliver really like practical and realistic use cases. So, what happens when there's this gap between the role play and the real world is that the confidence of the salesperson or the customer facing person, it basically comes, I mean, it breaks down to some extent, right? Because they feel like they lack some skill, they have practiced so much, why can't they deliver, right? Their conversations lose momentum in a way that the sales cycles might get longer. Suddenly the customers don't respond, right? The meetings start getting delayed, right? Which eventually impacts your pipeline numbers and eventually the forecasting numbers that you had promised to your board, right? And a lot of this happens essentially because the way the training was done in a different scenario, and what is the scenario right now is completely different, right? Because of the changing times, because of having a very simpler sort of a setup which you might have seen probably 1 or 2 years ago, which is not the case right now, right? And all this can be fixed simply by making very, very realistic role plays. Correct. So let's try to redefine what the real call readiness is, right? It's not just about getting really good scores or performing well in your training sessions, right? It is about how you actually handle those situations which you were totally not aware of, right? Sudden and unexpected sort of authority changes, right? The decision maker sort of changes in between. How do you handle that situation, right? So someone from procurement suddenly joins in the call, or you have someone from product joining the call, right? How do you handle those kind of situations, right? So you need to sort of figure out how you can actually make realistic situations which would be difficult in nature. They won't be a cakewalk, right? Not many of your GTM team members might be excelling in those role plays, but it would help them prepare for certain situations where they can be confident, right? In the face of uncertainty, in the face of sudden changes, and so on, right? So a lot of these things are essentially behavioral to some extent, right? They're not theoretical, right? So they are not like how a typical sales deal would actually happen, which used to happen probably 5 years ago, right? It's like in today's time, how the buyers have changed, how the buyers have evolved, how they ask more informed questions, more upfront questions, and so on, right? So that's essentially what we call now as the real call readiness. So basically, the conversations have got emotionally demanding, right? So instead of like a discovery, the buyers might just request you to jump into a demo, right? Or get into some sort of a pricing discussion, right? They might be in a situation where they have already checked out some other products, they have finalized few things, but certain things around pricing or contracts might be an issue, and they might want to discuss that upfront, right? um, Things like internal selling, right? How do you enable the team members, right, or the buyers to actually sell the product internally, right? These are the things which today's AI agents are very much capable of actually helping you train with, right? So you can create this role play agents that help you navigate certain situations around uh, internal selling, convincing the legal team, convincing the procurement person, convincing the CFO to create that extra budget, and so on, right? The idea is to normalize some sort of struggle during the practice, which is treated more as a preparation, right? This is not a um, sort of a you try to make the person so strong that they are ready to face any uncertain sort of a situation. They are able to deliver sort of the right results, or give or take right decisions, right, under pressure, right? So that's the overall idea. And um, and the main idea of this is creating some sort of slight discomfort, I would say, while creating role plays, more difficult or complicated sort of role plays. And discomfort is a sort of a signal that your role plays are actually delivering scenarios which are quite real, right? It mirrors the real stakes, correct? It's the idea is to introduce some sort of friction, which is not to stress out the team members, right? It's essentially to normalize taking decisions in those critical times, right? So and through this, the manager's role essentially now sort of evolves, right? It evolves from just evaluating to becoming a readiness coach, right? So you must ask actually questions like, what were you weighing in that moment, right? Why did you take that decision, right? What are the options you ruled out, right? Why did you go for, let's say, the option C? Or basically, let's take a pricing discussion, right? So why did you offer an extra 3 months in the same pricing plan and not give a 10 or 20% discount and just close the deal immediately? Why did you not go for an half yearly sort of a plan, or a, let's say, a quarterly sort of a plan, rather than offering some extra seats, right? Things like these, where you try to see how they are making decisions, how they are thinking on those critical moments, right? The idea is not to just go by the scores. In fact, we feel role play should never be treated as like a performance evaluation thing. It's essentially an idea to build some sort of a resilience. It should help you reflect, it should help you become more aware of what's your style of selling, right? And basically prepare you for the real world. Now, so the coaching, so again, the main aspects, or if you have to conclude, right, is that the coaching is essentially not about delivery. It's about preparing the sales team members to take the right decision, right, at the right time, correct? They need to be able to figure out, what are the stakes, what are the options, which one works, which one doesn't work, these essentially the trade-offs, right? And basically the feedback should be limited to what moves the deal, right? So that's your sort of north star metric, right? Is the deal moving forward, right? Are you getting to the next step or not, right? So these could be your let's say benchmarks, right, or the ideals to which you should pursue while creating this new type of role play agents, which are more advanced in nature, right? So to conclude, we have let's create some sort of a framework which you can quickly adopt in the coming week. So you need not overhaul the entire learning program that you have, or the enablement structure that you have put in for this quarter or this month, right? So we start essentially with one role play. We figure out, what are those um, minor changes or minor tweaks that you need to make, right? And I'll probably show you in a few minutes, like how you can easily do that, right, in your solution, in your role play solution. And we'll do that in Outdo over here, right? So you make those minor tweaks, you make those minor changes, and then you try it out with yourself, you try it out with two or three of your best, let's say, team members, and then you get that feedback, and then you slowly roll it out to the entire team. So that's how you do it, step by step, right? And again, as I said, right, the idea is to not overhaul your entire enablement program that you have put, or all the role play agents that you have created, but make those essential tweaks, right, after listening to the calls, after figuring out, where are your deals, where are your team members, where are your sellers basically getting stuck, right? What are those objections? And then make those changes to actually see how you can create more and more realistic role plays, right? So we'll just do a few practical right now. So we'll just head over to our application. Fantastic. So right now, we are in the Outdo application. I'm in the revenue intelligence part. Now I'll just switch over to the AI roleplay product. Fine. So one simple thing, how you can create a very realistic sort of a roleplay agent, is by creating a digital twin, right? You can create a digital twin from your existing call, and that's like the most easiest way to replicate a really to have a very realistic sort of a role play agent, right? So we'll just select a scenario. Let's say the buyer is basically aware of the problem, but they are not aware of the solution. You can either upload a call, you can upload a transcript, you can basically just create an AI twin of the buyer from their LinkedIn profile, right? Or if you're using, let's say, any other revenue intelligence tool, it could be Kong or Clary, you can basically import the calls from there as well, right? So in this example, or how I'll basically quickly show, is that you can just quickly upload a call, right? So I have a call over here, and I'll upload, and it will start uploading in a bit of a time, right? Meanwhile, so this is like essentially a quick way to create a roleplay agent. It's a pretty big file, so it might just take a few moments, right? But what it essentially does is it figures out, which are the top objections, how was the buyer, right, whether they opened up very slowly, right, whether they are asking a lot of questions early in the call, later in the call, when are they bringing in pricing, and so on, right? So when you upload an existing call, it has all those sort of persona, the objections, the questions around offerings and pricing and everything built in, and you can replicate the exact behavior. So you can then post uploading, the next thing you just need to do is basically create the agent, and that will help you create the agent, right? So another thing that I wanted to quickly show is how you can essentially take an existing agent, right, and you can basically create a you can tweak the agent, right? So let's say we figured out that this particular agent, right, is very ideal, right? Which is how things should not be, right? It should be very realistic. So to make it more realistic, you can fine tune that agent. Now if you try to do it in tools that you're using. At times this might be the complicated thing, right? It might take a lot of time, but this is essentially what we have worked a lot over the last 2 months, right? And we have made it like as simple as writing a prompt. So I'll just write a simple prompt, right? That make the agent open up slowly, right? And maybe let's add an objection to it, right? And add an objection that they don't have any budget for this quarter, right? That's it, right? So the MCP, right? That's a technical word, but it's a smart agent. Let's just call it the smart agent. Essentially, understands what you have written, and then it tweaks the agent, right, automatically, so that you don't have to basically uh, handle a lot of parameters or change a lot of parameters. So you can quickly say that you can quickly see that it has updated all the fields, right? So one of the objections which has been added is that they don't have any budget for this quarter, right? And immediately you can try out the agent or you can publish it, right? So in a few seconds, the agent would be published, and then you and your team is essentially ready to add it to a course. You can deploy it as a call drill, right? You can deploy it directly. You can share it directly with your team and basically practice with the agent, right? So these are like few simple steps that you can take right away, essentially, to create very realistic role plays. Fantastic. So we'll just wait for a few minutes to see, if there are any questions. So I'm just looking. Yeah, so I see there are a few questions. So one of the question is that they currently have a very large role play library which they have created over the last few months. How can they apply without actually starting over the entire process, right? So again, the idea is, and we have worked with some, some of the best agencies out there. So be it Rain Group, Sandler, and few others, right? What we have essentially seen them doing is not focusing on quantity but quality, right? So having essentially few role play agents, but tuning them, right? So one way to do this is just pick up, two good role play agents. uh, Try to tweak in the language, the objections. Don't tweak the entire library, right? The goal is not to build like or have 100 role play agents for various. So again, this depends on the use case that you are in, but ideally you don't want to have or update the entire library. Focus on those two or three critical sort of role play agents. Try to tweak it, right? Try to create that sort of attention, right? And so that the GTM team members, right, they pause for a second and then think, okay, how should I answer this, or how should I basically how should I handle this situation, and so on, right? So another question is, how how do we balance making role plays uncomfortable without hurting the confidence, right? Again, so uh, this basically starts from your team culture, right? Again, the idea is to create an environment where role plays are seen as something which help them constructively, and they don't feel like they are evaluated, right? Because if they feel like they are being evaluated at each moment, they won't take the risk, they won't try out different strategies, they won't see what works for them, right? They might just copy what is working for each other, right? So the idea is to create a sort of a healthy environment where they are open to trying out new things. Also an environment where struggling in practice is expected, right? And in fact it is encouraged. Yeah, they you basically encourage them to experiment, try out new things, right? And with that, you would actually start seeing that the actual calls, right, or the actual deals, they start feeling less and less stressful, right? And the team feels more and more confident because they are ready for, you know the worst case scenarios, the different situation, they are ready for the unexpected, right? Okay, so I am a manager working at an enterprise company. What is that one small change that a frontline manager can make, which is realistic, right, this week? Again, one simple change that, as I showed you, right, and happy to show that again to you. Basically. Just take up one role play or one particular deal which you felt that you should have won, right? Or there was something which was going on, and why did this thing stall or it got extended and so on. So just pick up that one particular deal, listen to the calls, figure out what is that exact moment where things broke down, right? And create one sort of a short role play around that, right? And again, you need not create the entire role play call, but you can focus on a micro learning sort of a role play, right, where you essentially practice or test out for that particular objection, or you check for that particular situation, right? So this way you are creating something that is not just done for the sake of it, right? Not just done as a checklist item, but your idea is to create a very realistic sort of a role play, right? So and continuously take feedback from your team as well, like did they see any change, right, with the role play agent, right? What we have seen is when you create more and more realistic role plays, even the team engagement essentially goes up, right? Because it doesn't become like something which is very expected or mundane, right? They feel a bit challenged, which is encouraging for them, right? And essentially the coaching basically becomes much more grounded in what is real right now. Fine. Okay, so fantastic, right? So we have gone through few questions, and I think I'll just share my screen once again. Right, so we are back at this role play. I will just go back to our webinar. Fantastic. So we have created this fantastic sales coaching guide, right, which is done after analyzing at least 1,000 role plays, right, which has been done after analyzing 50,000 calls, and it condenses the entire knowledge of what is the best practice, whether you should build something in house, or whether you should actually use a tool like Outdo, right, and so on. So a lot of situations like this which you will face as the sales kickoff happens, as the budgets get allocated, so that you take the right decision, right? So scan the QR code. You can also reach out to me, right? Reach out to our team. So this is my email address, or you could simply reach out to support@outdo.ai, right? Again, thanks everyone for joining. Hope you learned a thing or two, and I'll be sharing across the presentation and the video to you. Thank you.